Hello and welcome to the Service Operations Podcast. I am your host, Satinder Kaur. Our guests are from different industries and functions. They will share their experience, strategies, and the changing landscape to help you take the service operations of your business to the next level. Yeah, so hi, and actually, I'm very excited to have you here after that long wait that we've been, crossing each other.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm so happy to be doing a podcast when you are the person I'm talking to. So, yeah, wonderful.
It's same here. So I think we'll just get started. You can tell us about yourself while we, have a conversation. But let me just go back to, when we met for the first time.
Yeah.
So in around 2001 to what I remember is that we were quite desperate to migrate our customers to the IVR channel, and so we thought maybe if we revamp the IVR, it will become easy. So that's the first time when we connected with each other. And what I remember is that at that point of time, it didn't strike me. But now, when I look back, what I'm finding is that there was this whole thing about how you designed it. Because I remember we having a discussion saying that, a person cannot remember more than five things at a time. So an IVR should not have more than five menus. And I also remember that we spoke about how the language
Hmm.
should be conversational. It should not be, all the jargon, so which the customer doesn't understand. So tell us about your journey from there to what you do now, and how have things changed in the way things happen now as far as customers are concerned, and also as far as your work is concerned in this field of design and UX that you do.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah, I think that was, you're right, 2001, 2002, when we met and we were discussing the IVR, etc., and worked on that. So, from my perspective, since I am a user experience designer and starting out all those years ago, at that point, it wasn't very well known, even as a field, that, in order for a particular
Yeah.
customer interaction channel to work really well with the intended customers, there's a whole science and art of design that was really not well known in many parts of the world, including India. So it was interesting to start the journey at that point, which I believe was a little bit ahead, perhaps, of the times, when it was really becoming important. We started ahead of that, but the advantage was, therefore, I've seen the journey of going from when nobody was really very aware of what user experience is, to now when it's booming. It's just a tremendous boom in user experience across India, and I'm so happy to see that, and also across the world. So what is it that we actually, what I do, and how has that changed? My
Yeah.
So as a user experience designer, one looks at designing anything, whether it's a voice system, whether it's Siri, or it's an IVR, or it's an ATM, or it's the phone, or any platform, any software tool, or even a space, anything. But because I'm a user experience designer, I'm always looking at the end user first. I'm not looking at the technology first. So I don't start with asking questions about the technology
Okay.
stack and what will it be, how will the what on what platform will the IVR be, built, etc. That is not where I start. I start with, as you will remember, saying who will be using this IVR in that instance, and that question has still remained the
Exactly.
same. Who will
Yeah.
use this? Who will use this phone? Who will use the ATM? Who will use the wearable? Who is the user of the chatbot? That who question, followed by why do you think they will use this, has not changed. So that continues, and therefore, because it's been 21 years since I started with HFI in India doing user experience, in these 21 years, that question hasn't changed, but the reasons have changed. So the responses have changed as well as the
Okay.
situation of people have changed. So now answers are not just one simple thing. Okay, the end user is this kind of people and they will use the IVR because they have to sort out a problem they have with, if it's a bank, their banking related problem. That may have been the only reason at one point. Now, there are many other reasons. Well, they could get onto the app for the bank and try to sort out their problem. They could go on to internet banking. They could, of course, the branch was always there. But in these times when it is become everything is moved to becoming more digital, end users also very savvy, so the reason why they will come is changing. Well, you know what, I tried my app but the app is just not giving me this answer, so I want a specific thing I want to come to the IVR for. I'm not coming to the IVR like 21 years ago because there is no other way and I don't want to go to the branch, so I'm struggling through. So all those things
Yeah.
have changed because there's so much more
Yeah.
technology that has come into everybody's lives, thanks particularly to the phone, that everyone is more savvy. Whether you have a basic phone, smartphone,
Yeah.
doesn't matter. People are much more savvy with technology and how to interact with a brand. So, as a user experience designer, I have to keep in mind that the ecosystem is more complex. Users are more savvy. They're asking more questions that were not asked earlier. So, therefore, I have to be alert about all of that because the end user's intent and rationale and motivation I have to be aware of in order to design something which there will match those kinds of expectations. If they don't match, if they are made aware that no, you will not get this particular thing that you're looking for. So I need to know more now than I needed to know about people. But, Satinder, the interesting thing is this: people still have the same short term memory. Human beings will have that for the next 100 years, also, probably. Human beings still visually process
Mm.
information in the same way that they did 21 years ago, they did probably 100 years ago, and will do for another 100 years. So, the human being, my physiology, and the way I process information has not changed because I'm still wired the same way. My memory still holds a certain amount of
Yeah.
information. I
Yeah.
still have motor movement issues because I still have these two hands and these fingers, and they deteriorate with age. My vision will deteriorate. These things are still the same. So, at one level, there are some fundamental principles in user experience design which are still applicable. So, the more we know what those principles are, the
Mm.
more we are sure that we are then asking the right questions that need to be asked. If we don't know that people have a certain limitation to the way information is processed, in memory, we'll ask the wrong questions of people. If we know that, we will ask that this is how you are, but in spite of that, you need so much information. So, out of that, tremendous amount of information, what are the most important things that you use 80% of the time? I will not ask that question if I don't know that there is a severe limitation with our memory, right? So, understanding those theories and principles have become of paramount importance to user experience design because otherwise there's so much shift going on. So, we better know what is constant and then work on what is
Mm.
shifting. If we don't know what is constant, then we are in one swirl of confusion. So, yeah, that's how things
Changed,
have,
yeah.
how
So
it's
see, now there
changed.
are two questions which are coming to my mind. Mostly when people design processes, uh, they just design it by default. See, everyone doesn't understand
Mhm.
the science of design and science of how humans think and what they do.
Yeah,
And I can even include
yeah,
me
yeah,
in that lot of people. Though
yeah.
ultimately we think about how the customer is going to use it, but we don't really
Mm.
understand so much of the science behind it. The
Yeah,
second thing is that there are certain
right.
things that
Yeah. Mm.
technology has changed in the human behavior. So many other people,
Mm.
everybody for that matter, did not know how to use the laptop, did not know, and people have learned it in a very short span of time. So the use of technology and
Mhm,
the
mhm.
customer behavior, which one influences which? Who influences who? Is it the behavior which is influencing technology, or is it the technology that is influencing the customer behavior?
That's a damn good question, I have to say. I feel that technology certainly shifts behavior. Uh, and, just as any new product that comes in the market shifts behavior. I mean, at one time, it was we stored everything in earthen pots and everything, right? Then the technology at that
Yeah.
point shifted to plastic, to etc., steel containers. So we all shifted because there was a reason that it just seemed like it was more convenient in many ways. And so our behavior shifted, but it was
Shiny
influenced by the
object.
availability of that product. Yeah. And right
Yeah.
now, technology certainly is influencing and impacting a change in our lifestyles. So that technology, the moment it is there in the market, so to speak, there will be a certain group of people who will adopt it quickly. And it is very interesting to study who are these people, because it is not true that,
Yeah.
to be an early adopter of technology, it's got to be somebody who's like really well educated or really leads a very privileged lifestyle. That's not true. Human beings are so creative by themselves that you'll find people living in the most constrained situations are often they find the most interesting ways to adopt new technology because it fulfills a need for
Yeah.
them, right? So,
You're right. I can give you an example about my mother.
hmm,
She had paralysis, and she had paralysis for like say 18 years. Okay, and when just before she had her stroke,
hmm,
she knew little bit about the computer. Like the desktop and how to put it on and things
hmm,
like that.
hmm.
Okay, and after, you will not believe, she started using the iPad.
Okay.
After that, she used to play games. She got mastery over the games, and because all that she could do was that. But at her age, and in the range, like say she must be around 70 to 84 till she was there,
Yeah.
she was like YouTube, you call it, and she knew all about it. And there was like, and it was a self experimenting thing. We didn't really teach her, she's
Hmm.
just learn along the way. So people adapt. I mean, they adapt fast.
So technology really can change behavior, can change a whole society. So I feel technology absolutely impacts and changes lives and entire societies. So, because of technology, because of the smartphone and the internet, look at the fact that today it's very difficult to for people to get away with a lot of wrongdoing, because everybody has a smartphone or a phone with a camera and they are capturing stuff as they see, whether a policeman is taking a bribe, whether they are they somebody is
Yeah.
harassing somebody is clicking pictures and taking videos. It's a different world suddenly.
Yeah.
And a very ordinary citizen
Yes.
will have the power in their hands to say, hey, I recorded this and I'm going to put it on social media, and everybody will see what was happening.
Oh, yes.
That changes the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
structure of the dynamic of power and who feels in control. All of that changes, and that's fascinating how technology can bring about such major changes.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's brought about a lot of changes in the on the service operations front also. So it's speeded up things. It has, resulted into less errors, and yeah, it's very convenient
Yeah,
also. It's very convenient. Now there's this other side of it. So is it going too
exactly.
much on one side, where
Hmm.
that little human element is getting lost somewhere in the interaction between maybe the company and the customer?
Hmm. Yeah, I think there is that, but Satinder, the thing is that personal touch. In many cases, perhaps that personal touch was not. It was not helpful in many cases. where the person who was trying to help from the side of a company or a brand was struggling with information to help the customer who is asking, because those systems were also not so well designed. And the result is the customer
Yeah.
was not feeling so good that, I'm not being helped. So I think technology has helped in those situations. But I will say this, that while convenience has become the big mantra for our civilization, right? Everything is about convenience. And
Yeah.
so increasingly,
Yes.
technology and its convenience and speed is making us very impatient with any kind of human interaction
Yeah.
where it takes a little more time to establish rapport, to have conversations. There's a whole generation, I think, that is growing up with this speed and instant, everything is resolved instantly. And then to have to feel, oh, I have to travel somewhere to meet somebody and have the conversation, really, is that a waste of time?
Yeah.
This whole So technology is
Yes.
certainly doing that, which is not so great, which is not nice. But I
Yeah.
wonder if
Yeah.
why is it that technology can come in and shift people who for hundreds of years, civilizations who have depended on being connected. How can technology come and just shift everything? Is there a more fundamental issue in people not being able to connect,
Yeah.
even if the technology wasn't there? Were we going towards being more individualistic?
In that direction.
Yeah. And
Yes.
technology just helped in making us more individualistic. But I
Making it
think we were
faster.
already on the
Making it
path
fast.
to going there.
So how do you see, like, going forward now, the brands and the customer? How do you see that relationship changing? Okay, there's another element also that's come in, is that of the aggregators now. So it's not
Yeah.
just you and the customer, the company and
Brand.
the customer. Now there is an
Yeah.
aggregator between, and there are various aggregators. So you have one for maybe, delivery, that is your courier. You have something for payments. You have something for. So it's like now getting a bit more complex. Now, what is the role that design, you design play in all this complexity?
Yeah, I think again that's a good question, and we grapple with it. That there's so much now. There's so many ways you can, interact and get your daily sort of chores done, so to speak. Not just one place you go to. There are multiple, and so even to decide, should I get my delivery from this or this or this place? Now I'm very confused, because there's not just a clear choice anymore. So overloading of these choices, and we know that one of the principles that we look at always in design is that, in terms of just physically making quick decisions, there's a challenge. The more choices that you add, the slower the response becomes of the end user, because you have to process things that much more in your head. So there's on one side we
So it goes back to
and
the five.
you
It
yeah,
goes back
yeah,
to those five things only a person can digest and maybe remember.
it's not only about remembering. If I give you in front of you, if I put, and this is actually from an experiment that's very well known, if I put 24 jams in front of you and say, see, it's so much choice, what would you like to buy, versus if I just put 6 jams in front of you and I say, which one would you like to buy? It's incredible how much more conversion there is when there are just 6 jams available to a customer versus when there are 24 jams in front of them. Because our mind becomes very confused with the decision making, that there are 24 data points. How do I even pick the one that is the best? And the risk of picking the wrong one becomes so huge that I'd rather go away. I'd rather not decide at all. But if there are 6, it's much more limited in my ability to process the risk of picking up the wrong one. And I tend to therefore make a decision to go ahead and buy one if there's limited choice. Otherwise I am confused. I think I have to research more, I have to find out more, and I go away. And we always advise our brands that if you overload people with too many choices, they're not going to be happy. They won't stay with you for long. So don't think that that's good. So even in the ecosystem where more and more providers and various forms of aggregation, etc., is happening, it is a challenge, and it will go towards a more personalized recommendation system, with artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of this kicking in increasingly.
Yeah.
There will be, without doubt, a situation where Apala will be recognized as I get onto my system, that, oh, she likes this kind of thing, just like Netflix does, right? That, oh, based on what you watch, you can't figure out what to watch.
Yeah.
We are giving you some recommendation. It'll be like that. I'll come and, it'll say, it's better. I think you'll enjoy ordering from here, or you will find it more satisfying to get your insurance policy from here. It will come to that situation where things become easier for me, the end user. Now, when we get there and how much of that is really going to be satisfactory, we have to see. But you know what,
Yeah.
Satinder, it will get, because end users will also want that simplicity.
Hmm. But what you are calling simplicity, what I also heard you say was that simplicity is the output. Okay. Now, what goes behind making it simple is much, much more complex and hard work, right?
Very,
Now, that has to be right.
yes, 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 absolutely. Which is why, from from my perspective, and of course I have the bias because I belong to this profession, but this whole human centered design or human centered approach to technology development and, of course, design is critical, because it, like you said, whatever is being built in order for the output to be simple and really meeting the expectations and preferences of the end user, the way we do the development and design has to keep that end user in the center. We have to constantly know and
Exactly.
understand people. We can't just sit in, some fancy, sort of space and have wonderful technology and design tools, and we love that, but we don't know anything about the people outside. That's not going to work. That's not going to
Yeah.
work.
And the other piece of being able to come out of
Yes.
it, I'll give you an example, and I think might have given it earlier. See, there was this, I had some problem and I needed to contact a company for the problem. So they offered me to interact with them on WhatsApp. So I said, it's convenient, okay, let me do it. So I got five options. Then I went through the five. I chose an option, then they asked me my name, and then this number, that number, all that. Okay, then it came to, do you want to speak to a human? I said, okay, yes. And then it all went into god knows where. So I started again. Then I started again. So I think I did that whole exercise five times till I lost my temper. And I was wondering, how do I come out, and where do I go to actually get my work done, so it's like it's like that vicious circle where you should have some option of coming
Yeah.
out and really dealing with a human or anybody who will actually solve the problem. So I think the other challenge is also that when things go wrong, and they do, the way it has to be handled has to be different, and then it can't be so technology that we are lost in that whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. So, there's a sort of a model called human in the loop that is used in artificial intelligence and machine learning to train the data as the algorithms are learning,
Yeah.
right? So there is a human being who's labeling, who's making, or supposedly, should make sure that the algorithms are getting the right kind of data, and the labels are what they should be,
Yeah.
etc. To put it very simply. So, from what you're saying, yeah, I agree. That human in the loop should be there in every system. It should not just depend on an
Yes.
automated sort of interaction, because there are times when things either go wrong, or you need to speak because you're exploring something. So either case, you can't just be dependent on a limited set of technology solutions. I mean, maybe one day
In
it will become very, very sophisticated, and you will be able to, all of us will be able to get our things solved and get what we want. But I think there must always be a human in the loop. That I agree with you, it's very important, and we forget that sometimes when we build
In
our
fact,
systems.
and also I try to use my, that little brain that I thought I knew. So I used words like I'm frustrated, I'm angry, and I was hoping, that whatever system they have picks up these words. Oh, at least somebody calls me and tells me, oh, yeah, okay, you're having a problem. Let us solve it. But that's so. So now there's another question which is coming to my mind. That is that, see, it's not just about countries, and you work across the world, so you will have different countries at different stages, I'm sure. It's also about, even every person is at a different stage, every company is at a different stage, and then how does, the expectation and the interactions are like, they're going to be as different for as many companies and as many people.
Yeah, which is why you see that all of the new technologies are becoming so kind of taking off in a big way, because the new technologies such as machine learning, deep learning, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all of these, that's an aim, using big data, using internet of things, using information from very many sources to craft a unique set of solutions and recommendations for each one of us based on each one's individual usage patterns and preferences. Now, of course, there's a lot of debate whether that really is the ideal way to go. Will society become one that just, you are just sitting on a couch and constantly uh, being fed things that without even thinking you're going to do? I mean, there are many different scenarios being predicted. Different people have different points of view, but it will get there, because you are right. As I mean, the world is complex. There are different cultures, we have different values, all of that. But there's also, as people across the world are getting more exposure via the internet to this world of information, which was earlier so restricted. It's only if you could afford an education, etc., that you understood a lot of things, you
Yeah.
read and all that. Now everybody
Yes.
can do that. So as that is happening, people across the world are also becoming more clear about, they want this and they want to find that, and they're not just happy to be, none of us are just happy to sit and say, okay, this is all I can get, this is my destiny, I can do nothing more. But now there's so much information, I can see, no, that's not right, I could get this, I can solve this. And the more each one of us becomes aware and demanding, the brands, the service channels all have to take that into account. And the only way, I guess, that'll happen, if
Yeah.
that's the trajectory civilization is going to go, with more technology, it'll be about personalizing. It'll be about understanding each one of us very well. And it also is scary, isn't it, that somebody, some algorithm somewhere owned by some company really understands me so deeply that it can do a lot of harm also, as we are seeing,
Yes,
every
yes.
day with
We are
stuff.
seeing it.
Yeah.
So it's like, first there is this whole individual thing. We are individuals, we are unique in nature. Then there is something that comes which makes all of us and puts us into one class or one bucket. And then from that, what will emerge is again the uniqueness and the, so it's, I think, in a way, it's a cycle. It goes through, you are there, and then you become a part of a mass, and then again someone picks out something, so you again become that niche kind of, maybe a product or a service, and then it goes back into the cycle again. So it is a circle.
There's also, a lot about people being able to make their own products, right? With all the 3D printing, etc., that's
Yeah.
increasingly becoming accessible. At one point, they were the 3D printers and all that was just
Mhm.
something you read about. They were only there in big institutions, and it now
Yeah.
you can actually either access a place that has 3D printers and you can print stuff, you can design and print, or you can, even smaller printers and stuff are available. So of course that still is about a certain level of affordability demands that. But the fact is, they will become more and more affordable. So imagine the situation where I can design and create my own products. I don't want to
Yeah.
deal with any product company, because you know what? I can design my own clothes and my shoes. I mean, if organs can be designed and printed, human organs can be printed. So
Yeah.
I can furniture, there are houses being printed, etc. So, and all the maker labs, all these fab labs, maker labs, making is becoming, also there
Yeah.
are, there are many sides to that, but overall, I feel, one side is this: I'm being given personalized recommendations, whether I ask it or not.
Yes.
Google,
Yes.
etc., watches me, they give me my recommendations. That's one side of it. And I have my personal, views that excessive amount of just being given, just served up stuff isn't really that great, because sometimes we need to step out of our own comfort zones, our own filter bubbles, and figure things out and change our
Yeah.
minds and change our viewpoints
Hmm.
and not be stuck
Yeah.
in one place. So I feel the other direction that I'm also seeing is more people are interested in making things for themselves. And that also is
Themselves.
being
Yes.
fueled by technology of one kind or the other. So, and there are
Yes.
models that people are making saying that in the future there could be one scenario that we all change into becoming communities, and we are self-sufficient
Yes.
communities. We grow our own food, we print our own and design and print and produce our own stuff, and we are off the electricity grid, but because we have solar panels and all of this, right? So it almost goes back
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
perhaps what at one time countries like India, maybe all countries actually at some stage of their development, but certainly a more agrarian country like India was based
Yes.
on
Yes. Yes. Yes.
that kind of structure. You
Yeah.
never know, maybe there'll be another
So
avatar of
actually,
that structure.
yeah, yeah, you're right. Because see, it again, see, we want to also come out. It's after all human nature, we want to come out of from where we are. So we always are looking for, going back into, maybe growing your own food, as you said. And there are people who are doing it. So yeah, maybe we'll also be part of many communities at the same time. The this community
Yeah,
and that, and put it
yeah,
together.
absolutely.
So I think it's very interesting as to how technology is going to take the relationship between a company and its customer, and how that's going to change because of technology. uh, Now, just let's what I would like to ask you is that if you were to maybe give two or three messages, or whatever you think that should be the takeaway, or what should people keep in mind when they are designing processes or when they are designing products? Because I think when they design products, the customer is in mind to a large extent. But at the same time, while designing the product, whether the service piece or the what happens after the customer buys the product, what are the few things that they should keep in mind in general, as a takeaway from our discussion so far?
I very strongly feel at this point in time that designers must work really closely with people or citizens. It is not enough, even in our user experience or user centered design, where more or less we do keep people in the center, but that is in fits and starts. In the whole process of design, where we are designing for some technology, say we are designing an enterprise system, or we are designing an e-commerce platform, or whatever it may be, or a banking system. So there'll be points in this design life cycle where we will reach out and do some research, understand users, and then maybe go back and show them the design and test and see if they can understand. So that is done. My point is that right now that is not enough. We need, as designers, we must be in really close contact with people and understand very deeply what is it that is happening with people, and not do our design work thinking, okay, we've checked these two boxes where we have talked to 10 users or we have talked to 20 users, and we know, and now it's fine, and now we can go ahead and design. No, we if we don't change our own designers mindset and posture, when I say posture, I mean more metaphorically, that we are part of the lives of people. We can't think of ourselves as this elite or designer creative person who sits outside. We should be in
Working.
there. So my advice always to designers nowadays is constantly, whether you're on a project not, constantly be in touch with communities of people and people who are not just like you. Just don't talk to your own friends and think you know the world. Reach out to other kinds
Yeah.
of people that you don't normally, they're not part of your circle. Unless you're in touch with citizens and people, you cannot take design forward for the betterment of the world, because then you will not know
Yeah.
as a designer if what a brand is asking for, is it really the best thing for them and for people. You don't know. It's your central role is you are the empath, you are the person who can understand with empathy all sides. Use that, step out of the design studio, go and be with people. So that's one of the biggest things that I think is going to change how technology goes in directions that augments human capabilities and doesn't go in directions where it takes
Hmm.
control away and our agency away from us. And I think designers have to play a very big role there by being the sort of the conscience keeper and saying, questioning and saying, but people need to develop their own capabilities. Let's not dumb things down
Yeah.
everywhere. So I feel designers
Hmm.
almost have an activist mentality. They need to not just think that, oh yeah, we know, we live in the country, we know how people behave. No, I don't. You
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
unless you
We
are in the
assume a lot of
midst.
things.
So we assume too much. So I think that's extremely important. The other thing I feel is very important is that we must understand that technology is neutral. So I often get pulled into debates where either it is, somebody saying technology will save the world, or somebody saying technology is destroying the world. So I'm always trying to at least tell designers that technology by itself is neutral.
It'll go where you say, where how you use
Yeah.
it.
So I think the human beings who are going to create and deploy the technology are who we should be more, worried about, and not the technology itself. So don't either damn technology completely and say it's bad, and don't also say
Yeah.
technology, we don't need to think twice if there's any technology. We do need to always question how does technology. So I think, Satinder, the
Yeah.
other two things that I feel are very important in sort of, as I summarize what I would tell designers is, apart from this connection they need to forge, we all need to forge with the community at large. There is also the question again of ethics and inclusivity,
Yeah.
because technology has its own, has its own way of changing how we live, how society, rules and conventions suddenly come into
Yeah.
play. Before we know
Hmm.
it, we are
Hmm.
behaving differently, we are following different kinds of rules. So, to be able to always keep an eye from, because as a designer, we are thinking a little bit more laterally about the deployment of technology and its impact, to always keep an eye on what is the ethics of this technology. Does it include a lot of biases that are not
Yeah.
apparent, but then the results of using the technology, the impact is that there are biases that are being embedded in decision making, which we don't know. Yeah,
Inherent.
yeah,
Inherent.
yeah.
Inherent in
Yeah,
the
and
in the
artificial
way we do
intelligence
it.
is something that is being
Uh,
talked about a lot. The
yeah.
biases
Okay.
that are built into the algorithms, because it's after all human beings who are building the algorithms and the rules, so to speak, that the algorithms follow
Yeah.
and learn. Uh, you know. upon. So we should be very, very clear that questioning what is, how have we built in certain ethics into the technology, so
Yeah.
that the technology like artificial intelligence is always, the algorithms themselves are always building on ethical aspects. So I think designers have a lot of have a big role to play there,
Yeah.
and of making sure therefore the
Role. Yeah.
ethics
Yeah.
stands for humanity and not just for some people, so it doesn't only.
Yeah. Not for the company only, not just for the
Correct,
immediate
correct.
gratification, so to say,
Yeah, it
just to
should
complete something.
serve
Yeah, you're
humanity in the
right.
best
Yes,
possible
yes,
way.
yes.
Everybody, one understands that organizations, of course, have to,
Yeah.
make profit, their revenues and profits. Of course, that's important, but not at the cost of
Yeah.
ignoring,
Hmm.
what the impact is. So I think designers must keep
Yeah.
their eyes wide open and ears really, glued to how the technology is being built
Yeah.
and deployed. So I think that's very important. And final thing is, this is
Yes.
only in the
Yeah.
last maybe few months, that I've been reading so much about um, this new term. I think the term is new, though this way or this transition has been happening. This term called the metaverse, where everybody is talking about the metaverse in the technology area,
Okay.
particularly, but also now businesses, etc., where the metaverse is really,
Okay. And what does
yeah, the
uh,
metaverse is a
what does it
blending
mean
of the
actually? Yeah.
physical and the digital, where and this whole pandemic period has further
Okay.
accelerated.
Okay.
We were already starting to do so many things digitally in our lives. Our
Okay.
routines were really becoming a mix of physical and digital. If you see how the smartphones are always, it's as somebody has said
Yeah.
when talking about the metaverse, the smartphone is not a phone
Hmm.
anymore. It's not a device. It's a place we live in, and that's really true. So the
Yeah.
Yes. And it's going to
So
happen
everything has
more and more.
converged.
And, we may live our lives when part of my room
Oh.
is real, part of my room is projected from somewhere else. And, I may be sitting, I always wanted to travel to Morocco. I may now be
Oh.
sitting, virtually in Morocco, and I am really being able to feel that place. So there are lots of these kinds of transitions that have
Hmm.
hastened because of the times we are going in. I mean, we are living in. So I think designers
Yeah.
have to think very hard about what is this new way of living and being going to be. How will a day in the life of a citizen look like anywhere in the world when it's all, we are living in this metaverse where everything is blurred, and how does one exactly design that? And
Hmm.
are we sure that everybody has a place in that metaverse,
Hmm.
and it's not only again for those who are somehow privileged in some way?
Yeah.
So I think these are, sort of the final messages that I would, if one can call it that, I would want to convey to my design community.
Wow, that's great. So, Apala, it's been like, a really learning experience having this chat with you, and lots of new things for people who are hardcore practitioners, like the real operations and the real technology in that sense. So it's been, an area that you have, kind of thrown light on in a way. And thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing your experience. And I hope, and I think I'm a little sure also, we might need to have a second podcast in continuation of this one.
Thank you,
So
Satinder, for inviting me. And yeah,
thanks
I'm
once
very
again.
excited to continue conversations in the future. I think that's one of the things. I think conversations like this uh, should should continue and evolve instead of being just a one time thing. Maybe you will start that trend of having podcasts that continue, and they come back
Yeah.
to some
Yes.
topics and see how those have changed, how the speaker thinks differently and all. So all
Thank.
the best for what
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to as a series of
Yes.
very
Yes.
interesting podcasts. So thanks, Satinder.
Thank you. Thanks.